The Galactic Council chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien laughter that reverberated through its crystalline walls. Ambassador Vexathul's 12 eyes sparkled with malicious glee as he pointed one of his 4 arms toward the human delegation. "Look at them!" the Kethamori representative wheezed through his breathing apparatus. "These hairless primates dare to request a seat among the civilized races?" Captain Lyrale Morven stood rigid at the center of the chamber, her jaw clenched as hundreds of alien species jeered at humanity's formal petition. The crystalline beings of Nexus Prime chimed their amusement in harmonic frequencies that hurt human ears. The gas-based entities of the Void Collective rippled with what could only be described as cosmic ridicule. "Your species has existed for what, 200,000 years?" Ambassador Zilthan of the Hegemony Coalition sneered, his scaled head tilting with predatory amusement. "We have civilizations that predate your entire evolutionary timeline by millions of years. You barely learned to harness fusion energy while we were reshaping galaxies." The laughter grew louder, more pointed. Species after species stood to mock humanity's primitive technology, their brief lifespan, their laughably small territory of influence. Earth controlled barely 3 star systems, while the lowest-ranking council member governed at least 50. "Perhaps," suggested the ethereal voice of the Luminar Collective, "we should offer them a position as galactic janitors? Their ships could clean up stellar debris." Morven's hands trembled with suppressed rage. She had trained for this moment her entire life, believing that humanity's ingenuity and determination would earn them respect among the stars. Instead, they were being treated like cosmic jokes. "You mock us now," she said, her voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. "But humanity has a longer memory than you realize." The chamber fell silent for a moment before erupting in even louder guffaws. "Memory?" Vexthul gasped between laughs. "Child, your species didn't even have written language when mine were conquering dimensions. What could you possibly remember that would matter to us?" Morven's eyes blazed with an intensity that momentarily silenced the nearest delegates. "We remember the old compact. We remember the Exodus fleet. And we remember why our ancestors chose to hide among the stars while you built your precious council." The mention of the old compact sent a ripple of confusion through the chamber. Ancient civilizations exchanged uncertain glances. The term was vaguely familiar, buried in pre-galactic histories that few bothered to study anymore. "Impossible," hissed the representative from the Skeleth Empire. "The old compact is mythology, ancient ghost stories to frighten primitive species." "Is it?" Morven smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then explain why your oldest archives have gaps spanning 30,000 years. Explain why entire star systems in the Outer Rim remain quarantined zones that even your most advanced scouts won't approach." The laughter had died completely now, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that seemed to press against the chamber's walls. "You're grasping at fantasies," Zilthan declared, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "Even if humans once had some primitive spacefaring capability, they're clearly long extinct or irrelevant." Morven reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small, crystalline device that pulsed with an inner light none of them recognized. The energy signature it emitted was unlike anything in their databases, ancient, powerful, and utterly alien to their understanding of physics. "This is a calling stone," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "One of 7 that my people have guarded for 30 millennia. Today, humanity formally requests not membership in your council, but your immediate surrender." The aliens stared in stunned silence as she activated the device. The calling stone's pulse swept across the galaxy faster than light itself, bypassing all known physics and touching something vast and patient in the darkness between stars. On the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy, in a region of space that appeared empty to every sensor and scanning device ever created, ancient systems began to stir. Fleet Admiral Nexus Korath felt the pulse through neural pathways that had been dormant for 30,000 years. Around him, the bridge of the Eternal Dominion hummed to life as systems that predated galactic civilization began their startup sequences. The ship itself was a marvel that defied the current understanding of physics, a living hybrid of organic, neural networks and quantum crystalline technology that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Admiral," reported Navigator Zephyr Voss, her consciousness merging with the ship's living computer system, "the calling has been received. All 7 ARC fleets are responding. Estimated time to Sol system, 14 hours. Korath's eyes, enhanced, with technology that allowed him to perceive reality across 17 different dimensional planes, opened for the first time in millennia. He was human in origin, but the process of joining the Eternal Fleet had transformed him into something far beyond his species' original limitations. His body was a fusion of human genetics, crystalline enhancement, and quantum field manipulation that allowed him to exist indefinitely. "Status report on the ARC fleets," he commanded, his voice carrying across dimensions to reach the other fleet. "Commanders, Genesis Fleet stands ready," came the response from Admiral Kestrel Vane, her voice echoing from ships hidden in the dark matter streams of the Magellanic Clouds. "All 10,000 vessels fully operational. Crew complement, 50 million. Exodus Fleet prepared for transit," reported Admiral Orion Thane from the void between galaxies. 15,000 ships, 75 million crew. All dimensional weapons are charged and ready. One by one, the 7 ARC fleets reported their status. Over 100,000 ships in total, each one a technological marvel that surpassed anything the current galactic civilizations could conceive. The crews were humanity's descendants, evolved and enhanced over 30,000 years of exile in the cosmic deep. "The younger races have grown complacent," Korath mused, studying the intelligence reports that flowed to him through quantum entanglement networks. "They've forgotten the old warnings. They've forgotten why we left." Voss nodded, her awareness touching the minds of billions of crew members across the fleets. "They never understood that we didn't flee in defeat. We left to prevent total annihilation, theirs and ours. The original human expansion into space had been explosive and unstoppable. Humanity's unique combination of adaptability, aggression, and technological innovation had allowed them to spread across the galaxy in mere centuries. But with that expansion came conflict, devastating wars that threatened to tear apart the fabric of reality itself. The old compact had been humanity's choice, voluntary exile in exchange for galactic peace. They would take their most advanced technology and disappear beyond the galactic rim, allowing the younger races to develop without the chaos that human expansion inevitably brought. "Scan the current political situation," Korath ordered. "I want to know what our descendants are facing." The analysis was swift and comprehensive. The Galactic Council had grown fat and lazy, their technology stagnating over millennia of peace. They had forgotten that evolution required struggle, that strength came from adversity. Earth's current human population was indeed primitive compared to the ARC fleets, but that was by design, a protective camouflage that had kept them safe while their cousins among the stars prepared for this moment. "They're laughing at Earth's humans," Voss reported, her tone carrying a dangerous edge. "Treating them as primitives, denying them basic respect." Korath's expression hardened. The ARC fleets had spent 30,000 years preparing for the possibility that they might need to return. They had hoped it would never be necessary, but the Calling Stone's activation meant that Earth's humans had faced a threat significant enough to risk everything. "Signal all fleets," he commanded. "We return to Sol system not as conquerors, but as protectors. However, any species that has threatened our origin world will face the consequences of their actions." The space around the Eternal Dominion began to ripple and fold as the ship's dimensional drives engaged. Behind it, 14,999 other vessels of the Genesis fleet prepared for transit. Across the galaxy, 6 more fleets of similar size initiated their return journeys. The Ark fleets had spent 30 millennia growing stronger, developing technologies that bordered on the miraculous and preparing for the day when humanity might need their protection. That day had come, and they were ready. The Galactic Council's emergency session was in complete chaos. Every sensor array, every deep space monitoring station, every quantum detection grid across 3 galaxies was screaming warnings about massive spatial distortions converging on the Sol system. "This is impossible!" shrieked the Kethmori science. "Minister!" His 12 eyes flickering rapidly as he processed the incoming data. "We're detecting quantum signatures that don't exist in our physics models." Supreme Chancellor Molgrath of the Hegemony Coalition slammed one of his massive fists against the command console. "I don't care if they're using magic. Deploy the 10th. Fleet to Earth immediately. We will not be intimidated by human tricks." But even as the orders went out, the spatial distortions around Sol system reached critical mass. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as 7 massive fleet formations materialized from dimensions that shouldn't exist. The energy signatures were so powerful that they overloaded sensors across half the galaxy. Captain Morven stood on the bridge of Earth's diplomatic vessel, watching in awe as the ancient human fleets took position around their homeworld. Each ship was a work of art and engineering that defied understanding. Organic curves merged with crystalline structures, hulls that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and energy patterns that made space itself glow with inner light. "My God," whispered Navigator Feng beside her. "How many ships are there?" "Initial count shows over 100,000 vessels," reported the ship's AI, its voice filled with wonder. "Each one approximately 10 times larger than our most advanced battleships. Energy output, beyond measurement. The largest vessel, the Eternal, Dominion, was a marvel that dwarfed entire space stations. Its hull stretched for over 50 kilometers, but that was only its visible dimensional presence. Scanner data suggested it existed across multiple reality layers, making its true size impossible to calculate. A communication beam reached their ship, and suddenly the bridge was filled with a presence that felt both ancient and unmistakably human. Fleet Admiral Korath's holographic form materialized, tall, imposing, with eyes that held the wisdom of millennia and the power of someone who had transcended normal human limitations. "Captain Morven," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated in dimensions beyond hearing. "You have called, and we have answered. The Ark fleets have returned to protect our origin world." Morven felt tears streaming down her face. "Admiral, the Council. They were going to classify us as a servant species. They mocked our petition for membership." Korath's expression darkened. "The younger races have grown arrogant in our absence. They have forgotten the lessons of the old compact. This will be corrected." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council's 10th Fleet was approaching Sol system with 5,000 of their most advanced warships. Admiral Zexkar of the Skeleth Empire commanded the formation, confident that whatever tricks these primitive humans were using, they couldn't stand against the combined might of the galaxy's greatest military power. "All ships, prepare for bombardment," he ordered. "We'll show these upstart primates what happens when they challenge the Council's authority." But as the 10th Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, they found themselves facing something beyond their worst nightmares. The human Ark fleets were arranged in perfect formation, their ships glowing with energy that made the local stars seem dim by comparison. "Admiral," his scanner officer reported, voice trembling, "I'm detecting weapon systems that shouldn't be possible. The energy output from their smallest vessels exceeds our dreadnoughts." Zexkar stared at the tactical display. His 5,000 ships suddenly seemed laughably small compared to the 100,000-plus vessels arrayed before them. Each human ship was broadcasting power signatures that defied physics as he understood it. A communication beam reached his flagship, and suddenly the bridge was filled with the presence of Fleet Admiral Korath. The human's appearance was imposing, clearly, enhanced beyond normal human capabilities, with an aura of power that made the bridge crew instinctively step back. "I am Fleet Admiral Korath of the Eternal Dominion," he announced, his voice carrying across dimensions. "You have threatened our origin world and mocked our people. You have one opportunity to withdraw and carry a message back to your council." "We don't negotiate with primitives," Zexkar snarled, but his voice lacked conviction. The sensor readings were impossible to ignore. "Very well," Korath replied calmly. "Then you will serve as an object lesson." What happened next would be discussed, in hushed whispers across the galaxy for generations. The Eternal Dominion, largest of the Ark Fleet vessels, moved forward with a grace that defied its massive size. Space itself seemed to ripple around it as the ship's dimensional drives engaged systems that existed beyond conventional physics. Admiral Zexkar watched in horror as his most advanced sensors failed to properly track the human vessel. "All ships, open fire!" he commanded, desperation creeping into his voice. "Target their flagship!" The 10th Fleet's combined firepower was devastating. 5,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warships unleashing destruction that could shatter moons. Plasma beams, quantum torpedoes, and gravitational disruptors converged on the Eternal Dominion in a display of raw power that illuminated the entire system. But as the energy barrage reached the human flagship, something impossible happened. The ship's hull began to glow with an inner light, and the incoming fire simply vanished. Not absorbed, not deflected. It ceased to exist as if it had never been fired at all. "Null space defensive matrix," Navigator Voss explained calmly from the Eternal Dominion's bridge. "Their weapons are being converted to pure energy and fed into our power systems. We're actually stronger now than when they started firing." Admiral Korath nodded. 30,000 years of preparation. Show them what we learned in the deep void. The Eternal Dominion's primary weapon systems came online. Not the crude energy weapons that galactic civilizations relied upon, but something far more sophisticated. Reality manipulation arrays that could alter the fundamental constants of physics within a targeted area. A single pulse emerged from the flagship, not visible to conventional sensors but felt by every living being in the system. Where it touched the leading edge of the 10th Fleet, 10 warships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, they were edited out of reality as if they had never been built. "Impossible," Zexkar whispered, staring at the tactical display that showed empty space where his most powerful dreadnoughts had been moments before. "What kind of weapon?" "Not a weapon." Korath's voice reached every ship in the system through quantum entanglement communication. "A teaching tool. We have spent 30 millennia learning to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. What you just witnessed was us removing the quantum probability that those ships existed. They are not destroyed. They never were." The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Across the 10th Fleet, crews stared at sensors that couldn't explain what they had witnessed. Their most advanced physics models had no framework for understanding technology that could edit reality itself. "This is your final warning," Korath continued. "Return to your council. Tell them that the Ark fleets have returned not as conquerors, but as guardians. Earth's children are under our protection now. Any species that threatens them will face consequences beyond their ability to comprehend." But Admiral Zexkar's pride overcame his fear. "You think your tricks frighten us? We are the Skeleth Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds." He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the reality bombs. If they want to play with physics, we'll show them what happens when we unmake this entire system." The reality bombs were the Council's most devastating weapons, devices that could collapse the quantum foam of space itself, unmaking matter at the subatomic level. The 10th Fleet had brought 3 of them, enough to destroy Sol system and everything in it. "Admiral," warned his science officer, "if we deploy those weapons here, we'll destroy Earth too. The humans we came to subjugate will be... Then let that be a lesson to any other species that dares to challenge the Council," Zexkar snarled. But as the Skeelith Empire's weapons officer reached for the reality bomb controls, he found his hand passing through the console as if it were made of light. Around him, the entire ship began to phase in and out of existence. "What you're experiencing," came Admiral Korath's voice, now seeming to emanate from everywhere at once, "is temporal displacement. Your ship is being moved through multiple timeline possibilities simultaneously. In some timelines, you fire those weapons. In others, you surrender. We are currently observing all possible outcomes." The Skeleth crew watched in terror as their ship flickered between different versions of reality. In some, they were firing weapons. In others, they were retreating. In still others, their ship was already destroyed. All possibilities existed, simultaneously. "We choose which timeline becomes real," Korath explained. "This is the power we gained in the deep void, the ability to navigate and select from infinite possibilities. Your fate is in our hands." The temporal displacement ended, with the 10th Fleet's ships locked in a stable timeline where their weapons had been completely deactivated. Admiral Zexkar found himself standing in his command center, but nothing responded to his touch. His crew was unharmed but helpless, their technology rendered inert by forces beyond their understanding. "You wanted to know what happened 30,000 years ago?" Admiral Korath's voice resonated through dimensions, reaching not just the frozen fleet but every monitoring station across the galaxy. "You demanded to know about the old compact. Very well, it's time the younger races learned the truth. Throughout the galaxy, every communication device, every holoscreen, every quantum transmitter suddenly activated with the same signal. The Arc fleets were broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously, ensuring that every sapient being in known space would witness what came next. The holographic projection that appeared showed not the current Admiral Korath, but a younger version, recognizably human, but already showing signs of the enhancements that would transform him over the millennia. Behind him stood representatives of dozens of species, many of which no longer existed. "This is a record from the conclave of endings, the historical," Korath began, "where the fate of our galaxy was decided. The year was 28,847 BCE by Earth's calendar. The recording shifted to show a galaxy-wide war of unprecedented scale. Human fleets engaged in battles that spanned light years, wielding technologies so advanced they made current galactic civilizations look primitive. Entire star systems were used as weapons. Space-time itself was being weaponized. Humanity had developed too quickly, the current Korath explained as the historical footage played. In less than 1,000 years, we had gone from barely achieving faster-than-light travel to manipulating the fundamental forces of reality. Our expansion was unstoppable, our technology advancing at an exponential rate that terrified other species. The projection showed the devastation caused by humanity's expansion, not malicious conquest, but the inevitable result of a species that advanced too rapidly for the galaxy's existing power structures to contain. Entire civilizations were being inadvertently destroyed not by human aggression, but by the side effects of their technological progress. We realized we had become an extinction-level threat to all other sapient life, Korath continued, not through malice, but through our very nature. Humanity's rate of advancement was causing a cascade failure in galactic civilization. The recording showed the desperate alliance of species that had formed to contain humanity. The Keth Mori, the Skeleth Empire, the ancestors of dozens of current council members, all united in their terror of human technological evolution. But we also realized something else, Korath said. his voice carrying the weight of millennia. If we stayed, if we continued to advance while integrated with galactic society, we would eventually transcend physical existence entirely. We would become beings of pure energy and thought, leaving behind all material concerns, including the younger races we had grown to care for. The projection showed the negotiations that led to the old compact. Humanity agreeing to exile themselves beyond the galactic rim, taking their most advanced technology and their most evolved citizens with them. In return, the younger races would be allowed to develop at their own pace, protected from the chaos that human transcendence would inevitably bring. But we also made another agreement, Korath revealed. If the younger races ever threatened Earth, our origin world, our genetic repository, our connection to what we once were, we would return. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. The current-day Admiral Zexkar stared at the projection, his mind struggling to process the implications. You're saying, you left voluntarily? To protect us? We left because we had grown beyond the physical universe's ability to contain us, Korath confirmed. But we retained our love for Earth, for the humans who chose to remain behind and develop at a natural pace. They are our past, our genetic legacy, our reminder of what we once were. Navigator Voss stepped forward on the Eternal Dominion's bridge. The humans of Earth are not primitives, Council members. They are our carefully preserved ancestors. Every advancement they make, every step they take toward the stars, is monitored and protected by us. They represent humanity's genetic and cultural heritage. The implications crashed over the galactic observers like a tsunami. The species they had been mocking, the primitives they had been planning to subjugate, were under the protection of beings who had transcended normal physical existence. The calling stone was activated because Earth's humans faced a threat they couldn't handle alone, Korath explained. But make no mistake, this is not a rescue mission. This is a reminder. The old compact still stands. Earth remains under our protection. Any species that threatens our origin world will face consequences beyond their current ability to comprehend. Admiral Zexkar's voice was barely a whisper. How many of you are there? In the Ark fleets, approximately 500 million enhanced. Humans, Korath replied casually. But beyond the galactic rim, in the deep void where we have made our home, the number is significantly larger. The revelation sent shockwaves through the galactic community. On the Galactic Council's emergency session, species representatives who had been laughing at humanity hours earlier now sat in stunned silence. The recordings of the old compact were being analyzed by every xenoarchaeologist and historical database in known space, and the results were undeniable. Supreme Chancellor Molgrath's massive form trembled as he addressed the emergency assembly. The records, the ancient records in our deepest archives, they mention the predecessor wars. We always assumed they were mythology. The gaps in our historical databases, added the Luminar Collective's representative, its ethereal voice carrying notes of terror. 30,000 years of missing data. We attributed it to system failures, but it was intentional, finished the Keth Mori historian. The records were purged to prevent future generations from accidentally triggering the return of the predecessor fleet. Captain Morven watched the proceedings from Earth's observation post, still trying to process everything she had learned. The primitive humans she represented weren't the dregs of galactic civilization. They were the protected, remnants of a species so advanced they had voluntarily exiled themselves to prevent universal catastrophe. Admiral Korath, she transmitted to the Eternal Dominion. What happens now? Do we join the Ark fleets? The response came not just to her but to every human on Earth simultaneously, a gentle telepathic touch that felt like a warm embrace from an ancient parent. You continue to grow, Korath's voice resonated in their minds. You develop at your own pace, make your own choices, forge your own path among the stars. That is why we left, to ensure you had that freedom. We are your guardians, not your masters. But the judgment phase was just beginning. Throughout the Sol system, the 7 arc fleets had arranged themselves in a formation that even the most advanced mathematicians couldn't fully comprehend. Space itself was being restructured around them, creating a sort of dimensional courthouse where the fates of entire species would be decided. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Admiral Korath announced, his voice reaching every corner, of known space, you stand accused of threatening our origin world and its inhabitants. You have mocked and planned to subjugate the species under our protection. How do you answer these charges? Admiral Zexkar, still trapped in his temporally locked ship, spoke for the Skeleth Empire. We didn't know. The records were lost. We thought humans were a young species barely worthy of notice. Ignorance is not absolution, came the voice of Admiral Vane from the Genesis fleet. Your species has conquered and enslaved dozens of worlds. Your expansion policies have destroyed countless civilizations. The fact that you didn't recognize Earth's protection doesn't excuse your actions. One by one, the Ark Fleet admirals presented evidence of the Galactic Council's crimes. The forced relocations, the species driven to extinction, the civilizations destroyed in the name of galactic order. The Council's member species had grown fat and comfortable, using their technological advantages to dominate younger civilizations, just as they had attempted to do with Earth. We face a decision, Admiral Thane of the Exodus Fleet announced. The old compact was created to protect the younger races from the chaos of unlimited human advancement, but the younger races have themselves become oppressors. They have violated the spirit of the agreement that gave them their freedom. The debate that followed was conducted on levels of reality that most sapient beings couldn't perceive. The Ark Fleet admirals existed partially outside normal space-time, allowing them to examine not just current events, but all possible futures stemming from their decisions. If we eliminate the Council species, Admiral Caney of the Void Fleet observed, the resulting power vacuum will cause chaos that could destroy hundreds of civilizations. But if we allow them to continue, countered Admiral Dex of the Storm Fleet, they will eventually threaten Earth again, and next time they may succeed before we can respond. The solution, when it came, was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. The Galactic Council will be dissolved, Admiral Korath announced. The species that compose it will be relocated to designated star systems where they can continue to exist but cannot threaten other civilizations. The younger races, those who have been oppressed by the Council's policies, will be given the freedom to develop their own interstellar governments. And Earth? Asked Supreme Chancellor Molgrath, his voice heavy with defeat. Earth will be given a seat on the new Galactic Assembly, Korath replied. Not because of their technological level, but because they are under our protection. Any species that wishes to join the Assembly will be judged not by their military might or territorial control, but by their respect for the rights of other sapient beings. The restructuring of galactic civilization began immediately. The Ark Fleet's technology made it possible to relocate entire species without violence. Reality manipulation on a scale that turned interstellar migration into a simple matter of editing the quantum information that defined a civilization's location in space-time. 1 year after the return of the Ark fleets, the galaxy bore little resemblance to its former self. The oppressive hierarchy of the old Galactic Council had been replaced by a confederation of free worlds, each developing at their own pace and according to their own values. The former Council species had been relocated to resource-rich systems, where they could rebuild their civilizations without the ability to threaten others. Captain Morven, now Admiral Morven of the Terran Diplomatic Corps, stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, a massive space habitat that served as the headquarters of the new Galactic Assembly. The station itself was a marvel of collaborative engineering. incorporating architectural styles and technologies from dozens of species, all working together for the first time in millennia. "The vote is unanimous," reported Assembly Secretary Kythera, a member of the Xelian species that had been liberated from council oppression. "Resolution 1247 passes. The Sanctuary Worlds program will be expanded to include all species displaced by the former council's policies." Admiral Korath materialized beside them, his form flickering between dimensions as he maintained his connection to the Ark fleets. Over the past year, he had become a frequent presence at the Assembly, serving as both advisor and guardian to the new Galactic Order. "The younger races are adapting well to freedom," he observed, watching the diverse crowd of diplomats working together in the station's central plaza. "It's remarkable how quickly civilizations can heal when they're no longer being oppressed." Morven nodded, still sometimes overwhelmed by the transformation. "The Kethamori have already established 3 colonies dedicated to artistic expression. The Luminar Collective is sharing their energy manipulation technology freely. Even some of the former council species are requesting to join the rehabilitation programs." "Fear is a powerful motivator," Korath agreed, "but it's a poor foundation for lasting civilization. The old compact was necessary 30,000 years ago, but it created a power structure that inevitably led to abuse. Through the observation, Windows, the Eternal Dominion, was visible in the distance, its massive form serving as a constant reminder of the power that protected this new galactic order. But it was no longer alone. The 7 Ark fleets had dispersed throughout the galaxy, establishing permanent bases that ensured rapid response to any threats against the younger races. "Admiral," Morven asked, "what happens now? Do the Ark fleets remain permanently?" Korath's expression grew thoughtful. "That depends on how well this new order develops. We've learned that complete isolation leads to stagnation, but our full presence would overwhelm the younger race's ability to develop independently. We're seeking a balance. That balance was already taking shape. Selected humans from Earth were being invited to train with the Ark fleets, learning technologies and perspectives that would help them serve as bridges between the transcended humans and the galactic community. Meanwhile, the most promising young scientists and philosophers from other species were being granted limited access to Ark fleet knowledge. We're creating a new kind of civilization," explained Navigator Voss, her consciousness touching the minds of thousands of beings across the galaxy. "One where advancement comes through cooperation rather than conquest, where wisdom is valued over raw power." The transformation wasn't without challenges. Some species chafed at the restrictions placed on aggressive expansion. Others struggled to adapt to a system where technological superiority didn't automatically grant political dominance. But the presence of the Ark fleets ensured that these growing pains didn't escalate into the kind of conflicts that had once threatened to tear the galaxy apart. "There's something else," Korath said, his voice carrying notes of anticipation. "Our time in the deep void taught us that this galaxy is not alone. There are others with their own civilizations, their own challenges. Eventually we'll need to prepare for contact with extragalactic intelligences." The implications sent a thrill through the Assembly members present. They were no longer just managing a single galaxy's worth of species. They were laying the foundation for something unprecedented in the universe's history. As the day cycle ended on Harmony Station, Admiral Morven found herself standing alone on the observation deck, watching the stars that now represented hope rather than threat. The Ark fleets had returned not as conquerors, but as guardians, not as masters, but as guides. Humanity's ancient children had kept their promise. Earth was safe, the galaxy was free, and the future stretched ahead with infinite possibilities. 10 years later, when the first extragalactic visitors arrived at the edge of known space, they found not a scattered collection of primitive civilizations, but a unified galactic community protected by beings who had transcended the normal limitations of physical existence. The visitors' initial plans for conquest died the moment they detected the quantum signatures of the Ark fleets. Instead, they were welcomed to the Galactic Assembly as equals, invited to share in the knowledge and wisdom that had transformed a galaxy from a collection of warring empires into a confederation of free worlds working together toward transcendence. The humans of Earth, once mocked as primitives, had become the genetic and cultural heart of the galaxy's greatest civilization. Their ancient children, the Ark fleets, had evolved into something beyond physical existence while maintaining their love for the worlds they protected. And in the deep void beyond the galactic rim, new Ark fleets were being prepared for the challenges that would come when the universe itself began to run out of room for expanding civilizations. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their understanding that true strength came from knowing when to fight and when to protect, when to advance and when to step back, when to conquer and when to nurture. The aliens had laughed at humanity. Now they bowed before the wisdom of a species that had learned to transcend the need for dominance, while never forgetting their responsibility to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The ancient war fleet had returned not to conquer, but to teach the galaxy what it truly meant to be civilized.